Adobe Illustrator has a more modern feature for exporting web assets called Export for Screens. In this video, we'll take a look at how we can use this feature to export assets for web and mobile development. Now, I'm beginning this video with the mobile mockup file already open, and we have the slices that we had created previously from the previous video. Now, we're not going to use the slices in this video, and as a matter of fact, the Export for Screens command doesn't utilize those slices. So I'm just going to come up here to the View menu, and I'm going to choose Hide Slices. That way we can kind of focus on the art itself. Now, the Export for Screens command can be accessed by going to the File menu and choosing Export, Export for Screens. And when you open this up, the first thing you're going to notice is that in the Artboards tab at the very top, it's essentially going to grab all of the artboards that you're using in your document. Now, to illustrate this, what I can do is cancel this, and I'm going to grab my artboard, and I'm going to make a copy of this artboard along with all of the artwork, and that's because the Move Copy Artwork with Artboard button was enabled. And I'll just go ahead and click OK. And then what I'm going to do, and you can follow along if you'd like, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and hide a few of these things. So I'll just use the keyboard shortcut here. And I'm going to grab the main image in the background, and I'll double click to go into isolation mode. And I'm going to basically delete this image, and then I'm going to place a different one. I have another image. You could follow along if you wish. This is called Mantis. And I'm just going to go ahead and place this, maybe zoom out a little bit, and maybe this is the one that I want to use for this particular instance. There we go. That looks pretty cool, I think. And then we'll exit out of there, and now we have another instance that we can take a look at. And again, let's just hide those slices there. That looks good. And so if we go back and choose File, Export, Export for Screens, now you can see it's grabbing each artboard, and I can choose whether I want to export the assets or not. And it's basically going to export the whole artboard as an image. So over here you can define where you want the assets to go. You can also choose what format you want. And this is really important because if you look at the format drop-down, you're going to notice that we have a lot of the same options we had in the Export for Web, or I should say the Save for Web command. But in the Save for Web command, we only have raster-based formats. But in the Export for Screens dialog, we also have SVG and PDF, which are vector-based formats. So that's yet one more advantage that we have using Export for Screens. And again, we can add a scale if we want to, and we could tell it that we want this one to scale at 200% or 2 times the size, and that's going to adjust the size accordingly, and I can even choose the format. Now, in addition, we also have the Assets tab up here. And this allows us to export at a much more granular level, because right now, in the Artboards tab, we're exporting the entire artboard. But here we can export individual elements. And to do so, I'm going to click on the Asset Export Panel button. And this is going to display the Asset Export panel where I can grab individual elements. So watch this. I can grab this guy, drag it in there, and that's going to be an asset it's going to export. I don't have to do one at a time. I can select all of these and drag them in here, and each one is going to get exported as an individual asset. Now, up here we have the hamburger. I'm going to grab that, and if I pull this over, let me just grab only those elements. I don't want all of those pieces there. There we go. Now, if I just grab this and drop it, you'll see that it grabs each individual item. Not what I want in this case, so I'll undo that. And instead, if I hold down the Option or the Alt key as I drag it, it will add it as a single item instead of the individual elements. Okay? So that's how we can add the individual pieces here. Now, once you've done that, you can once again set the individual scales that you want to add to these. I can select multiple at a time, and I could say, you know what, let's remove that additional scale, or I can add one. And if you click on this button here, this will take you back to the Export for Screens window, where you now have the artboards as well as the individual assets. So we can choose a folder here. I'm going to click on the folder icon, and I'll just put this on my desktop, create a new folder called Assets, and then I'll click Choose, and I'm going to choose Export Asset. And you'll notice that in that folder, I now have the Assets folder, the 1x folder, and then here's each individual icon that has been exported and is now ready to use. And if I wanted to export the artboards, again, I can just go in there, go to the Artboards tab, and I can do the same thing. And now that's going to export the artboards themselves to the same folder. So you've now learned two different methods that you can use to generate web assets directly from within Adobe Illustrator.